I feel that if I would have had a mentor a little early on in my career, I would not have made so many business mistakes. I've never worked for somebody else. I've worked my whole life for somebody else, but I could choose who it was. They were never in control of my work. Working for a boss, like all these people here in this office working for this company and this style and this thing, I miss that. I miss the fact that I've never had that experience of working for somebody else with their vision, their mentality, and having to adapt myself to that on a consistent basis. But also to not really having a mentor following me in the youth of my career.
Koert, welcome to our Lighting Hero series.
Hi, Martin.
Old,
We finally got there.
all the way from Belgium. I think is your native language, Tom, is that Dutch as well, or is that
Yeah,
French?
no, it's
Dutch.
Dutch. Yeah.
So
Um,
we both have a Dutch background, some family ties. As you know, I was born in Holland, but from a French mother. So you are living in a country that has French and Dutch. So I would love to hear a bit more about your journey. We have started this Lighting Hero series with David Gilbey. He wrote quite a number of Lighting Heroes posts, and we found it really interesting and wanted to dig a bit deeper into the personalities behind those Lighting Heroes. And you are one of them, and here you are. So we're going to talk a little bit about who is Koert Vermeulen, and go a bit through your journey from your early days all the way to where you are today. So maybe you can start off by introducing yourself, where you are, where you were born, how you came into lighting, that sort of first step of your journey.
well, good. Good morning, or good evening, or good afternoon to anybody that's listening at the moment. You pronounced my name right, so I'm already happy with that. It's Koert Vermeulen, because for the most of the English-speaking people, it's Kurt, because otherwise they just get lost with the U and the E. For the French people, say Koert. So this is whole thing. So thank you already for doing that. My journey, I think my passion was inflamed when I was 14 and a half years old, by being in a room with a tour manager at that point, who was in Belgium for a promo tour, and they were, they hired us as a small rental firm. At 14 years old, actually already a small rental firm for doing disco bar, little DJs going to parties and doing, with
So
the
you were actually
school.
a DJ. You were actually a DJ at
Yeah,
in your early
but
days.
I don't know. I wouldn't call myself a DJ. I put records on a turntable and put the needle on it, and
Oh,
change the fader on the mixing table. I wouldn't call myself a DJ. That's too much credit for for what I was at that time.
mm,
Um, but the main thing is I had this equipment, and so people in Antwerp, where I lived at that time, and I was born there, just uh, cheap and easy to work with. So people hired us for small things that we had to do. So this concert happened, and this tour manager came in, and he kind of took my disco equipment and put it in such a way and took all the filters away, because it was typically red, blue, green, and yellow, those typical colors. Took all them
yeah.
away, put them in white and only blue, and what used to be front light, he put it as a back diagonal light and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, that kind of opened my eyes on what lighting was able to do. And it's been, not consciously yet, but I was so amazed by that from that moment on, lighting was my thing. So I gave the DJ to my friends. They were doing that, and during our parties, I was actually, you know, pulling the knobs and putting up the lighting equipment. And going forward a couple of years, 6 years later, we were already really running a company. We were with 3 associates. We had already 3 people working for us. And we had some trouble with the tax people because we were doing everything under the
Yeah,
radar.
yeah, yeah.
And so they gave us this kind of thing where, go and have a real company, otherwise you will be not jailed, but
Mhm.
we were not really doing everything according to what it should be. And that's the start of my professional career. I was still doing a little bit of architectural college at that moment. And so I went into this endeavor and I created my first company, which was a rental company for lighting and sound. And where my role was being commercial, I was the one talking to clients as the business, role that I have, and as the technical role, my role was the lighting and the lighting design that had to do with that.
Right, right.
5 years along that way, my 2 other partners and myself were no longer in full agreement on how we had to run this company. I wanted to have a full creative view. They wanted to make money. It's not always compatible. I know that now.
Yeah, yeah. They say sometimes designers are not always good business people, and vice
Yeah.
versa.
So we kind of split ways. I took my shares, I sold my shares in that company and created the very first iteration of ACT at that time. And ACT is actually at that time art concept technology, because those were kind of the 3 things that I pulled together for my work at that time, which was solely actually in entertainment, fashion shows and concerts and corporate stuff, all those kind of things. No television, no film. I never did any film. But that was like that was my beginning, let's say. And
But
in
did you do any
1995,
creative? Did you do any creative studies, or you sort of rolled into the creative part of architecture lighting?
well, I'm this kind of autodidact, self-taught person. From 14, when I was rolled into this kind of a passion for me, I started to read the books in English, of course. Richard Pilbrow, the books of whatever I could get my hands on. At that time, Plaza was kind of the mecca for entertainment lighting. So I went there, and they had a bookshop there. So I always went home with lots of books.
Ah, yeah.
I read the magazines, Lighting Dimensions, Theatre Crafts International, Lighting and Sound International. Those were my
Yeah,
Bibles. So I read them from back to forth and
yeah,
diagonally and
yeah, yeah,
to be self-taught as much as possible.
yeah. Mm.
And so the only real education that I got was in architecture. It was my I didn't finish that architectural school because at 21 you were mature at that time. Now it's 18. At that time it was 21, and then you could start a business. So I was just going to school until I was able to open business. That's actually a
Mm.
pastime.
But you seem to have gone off in the direction of doing architectural lighting first, contrary to today, where you're more into experience lighting, right? So if I look at your website, there's a lot of architectural, and if I look at the timeline that you post on your website, it looks like you started really in architectural lighting. Is that correct?
No, I really the real start of ACT was in entertainment lighting design. So really, the fashion shows, the concerts, the corporate stuff, and also the first son et lumières. Where for the French,
Yeah.
where we found the light shows on cathedrals and whatever it was. It was before video mapping was even a part. So we did that
Mm.
already, quite in a long way. And because we were doing these kind of nice lighting, non-permanent for a show on a cathedral or on a office building, the question was from those building managers, hey, you did a very nice job. Can you do that also permanently? So I really FUCK'd my first real architectural job because I only used my entertainment
Mm.
tools to creating an architectural plan, and it was completely destroyed by the engineers because I used, I mean, for a simple facade, like 180,000 watts of lights because I was using
Oh,
big stadium lights with color
yeah,
changers and
yeah,
stuff in front of it. And I used 20 of them. So it was the Arena Vision. You must know that because that's from your time when you were at Philips.
yeah, yeah. That's right.
We used those kind of things to light up the facade because I wanted to get a dark blue on it through a
Yeah,
color
yeah, yeah.
filter. So my first job was never built
Mm.
because the CEO wanted it. The architects, engineers, and myself, we couldn't agree on how to do it. So in the end, he just said it will be dark. So there is still this building in Luxembourg, very
Mm.
nice building, which has no facade lighting on it, and that's my mistake.
Funny because it reminds me of my own, but in reverse. Because I started in architectural lighting, obviously with a background with Philips and all that, and I started architectural lighting. And at one point of time, I also ventured a little bit into stage lighting. And
Mm.
my first job, just a local community theater, but my backgrounds were fantastically lit, but it was really bad lighting for the actors because I forgot that there's also people there, and I was actually lighting the backdrop, and the stage was really well architecture lit. But yeah, that was a learning curve as well, so I can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Now, setting up your business is not everybody's given thing to do, right? Because we learn maybe design skills, and you are self-taught, as you say, but setting up a business also means that you need to understand the business administration of things. By the looks of it, you had some partners and your collaborators that maybe helped you. How was your first experience of actually running a company? Because design is one thing, but also making sure that you can keep afloat is another story.
Well, it's trial and error.
Yeah.
But let me first go to what I think is the most important thing, because there is the management of your firm, but there is also keep your firm, coherent to keep it relevant, actually.
Yeah.
And what I was saying, I started really in entertainment lighting design, then went into architectural, and I can see this almost every 5 years. I rearrange or I reposition or I redo something in the firm to keep it relevant, and that's why
Mm.
after 28 years we are still here. Being in a little bit more innovative way because I see a lot of my colleagues doing solely and very, very good pure architectural lighting, even with only white lighting and stuff like that. So they are really, they got a
Yeah.
niche out of themselves, and I think they
Yeah.
became very, very relevant
Yeah.
um, by their style, and like an artist has that thing. I didn't really do that. I think I got bored quickly with what we were doing. I'm just that character, maybe. And so I always wanted to see what is out there, what's the next thing. So after architecture, video became a part of our tool sets, and after that, everything that had to do with special effects. Water is actually my specialty, I think, worldwide, and most producers know me as the one that does magic with water. That started with the Dragon show that we did for Le Rêve in the Wind, which was a complete swimming pool,
Mm.
and all the sets and all the things come out of the water. So I learned a lot from doing that in 2005.
Mm.
But other special effects like pyros and smoke and all those kind of things became the tool set with which we were creating, and that goes now into what we call overall the experiential design, which is no longer just lighting, but it's the narrative into which lighting and video and sound and music and scores and soundscapes, but also all the special effects and scenographies and elements that the medium that you need to make
Yeah.
something visible just gets this symbiotic kind of
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
wholeness. I'm
But
using
it
a
was
lot
not
of
rolled.
fancy
You
words
sort of
now.
you sort of rolled into it from. I mean, I'm looking at it from away, but it feels to me that you got, you started in there and you got some other jobs, and so gradually you really moved into this field of experiential design, as you call it.
Yeah,
Well, for me, I never set out to become a lighting designer specifically doing a lot of hospitality projects, but you do one, then you do another, and you sit nearly pigeonholed somewhere because of the sort of jobs that come your way. And so I find it very interesting to see how different lighting designers end up in different directions, maybe by coincidence, because they at one point of time during their journey they came across a project that pushed them in a certain direction, and then you gradually build from there. And I find it fascinating to see what you have been doing, and you got some really nice projects like the star in motion, your tree of life. You got involved in expos, Olympic Games. In fact, we probably crossed our path in several locations because you came to Singapore. I saw that you also were in CC in China. I did hotels there. So we were somewhere potentially walking in the same wetlands, but not knowing from each other that we were there. But yeah, so tell me a bit how that journey went, because I find it quite fascinating to see how people just roll into a certain. I mean, it's also your interest, I guess, because of your background, right? But um, yeah, I'm interested to hear how you really got further and further, and basically deeper and deeper into this
yeah.
interactive design.
I think it's a coincidence on one hand, but it's also the choice of the clients. I think I mean, fortunate or not unfortunately, we have never really had a business developer into our midst. We never had to really put a commercial person on the road for us to find work. We
Mm.
kind of, it's always the phone ringing, and we do our marketing. So we put stuff on our website, we put stuff on our social media now.
Exactly. Yeah.
For that, it was a newsletter, but except for that, we didn't do anything, and we didn't go out. People just found us and called us, and so it was our clients that just always came up with these kind of things like, "Hey, we've got this crazy idea. We saw that you did this. What do you think? Do you think it's feasible? Is it possible?" So it's that clients that were good clients and that made a lot of the possibilities that we
Mm.
had in front of us, reality, because they had a kind of a trust, but also a good sense of um, we'll make it. Because I think it's if I have to pride myself on one thing about ACTLD over the years, is that we always delivered under the
Mm.
most cruciating, most difficult circumstances we ever were. Where in the end we only had 4 hours during the day to program a whole show.
Mm.
We still delivered the shows.
Mm.
Nobody saw how it could have been if we had more time, but at
Yeah,
least the
yeah,
public was there and saw what it was. So being able to deliver you know, as a guarantee has helped us to be with clients that gave us enough trust to be able to, to do these kind of crazy things and develop it from there.
yeah. So you also got involved in the Youth Olympic Games in Singapore. I think you did the opening and closing ceremony. Now I've tried to get involved in Olympic Games in China for the Beijing Olympic Games, and I was actually talking to architects and did actually some preliminary design for the water cube. But in the end, it was so commercial that if you were not doing it for free, basically, it was very hard to get in. So I just wonder what your experience was with the Olympic Games that you did in Singapore.
Well, Singapore was a specialty project in the way that a friend of mine in Singapore at some point just called me up and said, "Kurt, you have to come to Singapore." and I cannot tell you why, but you have to come. You really trust me on this. It was not a guy that I had already done like 10 projects with. It was more a um, kind of a, we had a good feeling between one another. And so I literally took 3 days later the airplane to Singapore, and he put me up in the hotel. I think it was the Mandarin Hotel overlooking the Marina Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, "Yo, you will meet two people downstairs in the lobby. They will not introduce themselves. You will be. I
Mm-hmm.
will introduce you. I will
Yeah.
talk 5 minutes, and I will go away, and they will start to ask you questions." And literally that happened. So I sit there. They didn't say who they were. They all of a sudden they were talking to me about a possible show that they wanted to do that was supposed to be done on the Marina Bay. They didn't talk about Singapore Youth Olympic Games, nothing at all. And they asked me all of a sudden, if we want to put a show on the bay in front of that, the bleachers were already there, and that football field. How do you want to do it? And I tried to think about it, and I said, "Listen, come with me," because they had put me up on a room on the 24th floor. So I took them up, the two guys that I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
opened up the window. I put all the lights out, and they were looking at each other like, "What the fuck is going on here?" And I showed them because the whole Marina Bay was in front of us, and I said, "We have to work with a 4-layer system here. You got the stage, we got the actors layer one. You got the scenography that will be around it is layer two. We've got the water, which is layer three. We've got the skyline, which is layer four. And then on top of that, you can have the sky with the fireworks." I say, as long as we can light it in such a way that we can use and the water and the skyline and the usual things, which is the actors and the scenography, that's going to work. And 2 days later, well, when we went down, one of them gave me his card, and that was the president of the Singapore Youth Olympic Games,
Committee.
ceremonies.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was he was
Yeah.
a lieutenant colonel at that time. He became a general while he was doing it because it was the army actually organizing the
Mm.
thing. And the other one was the artistic director. And I only got to know that 3 days later that he was actually the artist. So
Cool.
they chose in that kind of way. It was paid. It was paid properly. There was no issues with that. While most of them are really paid, but you got three levels. You got the American level, which is, if I have to put the number on it, 3 times what a European would ask. And then sometimes you got the guys that do it for free and that literally do it for board and hotel. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
a game. It's a game. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was working with the architects with the idea that they would be employed, and then suppliers came in,
Mm,
my old company, who
yeah.
said they would do it for
They're really
free.
good at that, huh? Coming in like
So
that.
anyhow, I still worked a bit on the master plan and did quite a lot of things around it, but yeah, I found it difficult, and it was really quite complicated to get in there because every Tom, Dick, and Harry wanted to be in there, of course.
The first
You
one
also
is
had,
very. The
sorry,
first one is the most difficult one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, once
Because
you're
they,
in,
they,
then that's yeah,
they literally have a kind of a condition for
yeah.
doing opening ceremonies that you have had you should have done one before. So
Hmm,
it's, I mean, how you get in to do your first one if you are not allowed to
exactly.
do anything?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, 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 yeah. Of course.
The
Now,
first one is difficult.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I also got involved in the World Expo in 2010 in Shanghai.
Mhm.
You did 5 years later in Italy, if I'm not mistaken. How did you get into that?
My relationship with Marco Balic. I've, I've got I've got a really good relationship with Marco, and like 3, 4 other important artistic directors around the world.
Hmm.
There are jobs that they really like to do with me, so it's them actually hiring me on these kind of projects. Usually already very early on. I get involved in a lot of competitions with them. In some competitions, I don't need to do anything. In some, I need to, really deliver already a concept, visuals, whatever it's going to be. But while they are presenting and they are really doing their pitch, they are the ones who are hiring me into this kind of thing. And there are
Right.
really like 3 or 4 acceptable producers worldwide that can do that kind of ceremonies. And Balic is the best one, I feel,
Okay.
for me.
It's your
For me.
world. I'm not familiar with that. So I trust you. I trust you. So it's interesting because you mentioned that you were doing. Can I say call it speculative design? That you create concepts for a competition or for being getting appointed into some of these jobs. Is that
Oh
so?
yeah,
Is did
yeah,
I
yeah,
understand it correctly?
yeah. I would say that 2/3 of our work is straightforward commissioned work by offer alone. One
Mm,
third always plays the competition really plays a role.
mm,
Um, Luckily today, they have stepped away from the non-paid, work. There is at least a little bit of money to pay for the competitions that they are putting together. Then we are mostly agreeing to work on the competition. If there is
mm,
absolutely no money, they want you to do everything for free. Then we maybe take 1 or 2 a year
mm,
in that phase.
mm.
And if it's really something that we really want to do,
Yeah, yeah, I
because
can imagine.
I mean, a competition that you do easily, you invest 10, 20,000 euros into a competition if you
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
do it properly. And I'm not talking neon style kind of concepts. I'm talking much smaller things.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, you cannot survive doing non-paid competitions. I don't think. I mean, I couldn't. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, let's face it, creativity is our bread and butter. And we that is what we deal in, right? With creativity, our time. So I always found it difficult. I've also in my life accepted a few, but generally I feel that if they don't pay, even if it's speculative, it's sometimes a
Mm,
hard call. And there are projects that you would love to do, but then you look at the conditions and all that, and then you have to make a decision whether you want to invest that time and money or not. And
yeah.
yeah, sometimes you do, but most of the time, from my side at least, no, I find it very difficult. Um, Okay, so now something else. If I want to hop further down, you did this star in motion in Saudi Arabia. That is not your usual thing that you would do, hanging something high up in the
Ah,
sky.
okay.
Uh, that's how it's called, right? Is it called star emotion?
Star emotion, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
first of all, I want to intervene saying that light art installations have been a real part of our portfolio since 2010, when we
yeah.
came out with OVO and the wooden egg. That was our first real introduction into light art, and it has been a success since then. Sometimes our stuff is
Hmm.
put in a garden of a really rich person that I
Yeah,
cannot
yeah, yeah.
divulge what that is. But having it, I mean, having been part of the North Festival, that didn't come as a surprise to me. I think I've got a place to be in the competition, to be an artist there. On the other hand, the fact that they gave me the site and asked me what would I like to do with it? I mean, that
Hmm.
was, that was okay. That was my thing, and that's also the curator who knows my work from entertainment and architectural, and said, If somebody can do something with that tower, it's Koert. That was the thing. Because they gave me 3 sites to look at, but the first one was that one, and I kind of in 10 minutes when I was talking with the curator, I came up with the idea already to do
Yeah,
this
yeah,
this kind of thing.
yeah.
So we didn't even talk about the 2 other locations anymore. She was happy with the idea that I gave, and she said, "Can you do a little bit of a sketch on this so we can present it internally to the team?" And then we did that, and then 3 weeks later she said, "It's done. Make a visual." So we made some visuals out of that, and we didn't hear anything anymore until 3 months later, after which they said it's too expensive. We need to see how to do it. And then in the end, they put money on top of it to make it happen. And then all of a sudden, that
It
star was
was.
hanging there at
Yeah.
273 meters high.
But it seems that in these kind of experienced lighting designs, there's a bit more budget available. I'm always struggling with my clients. They always value engineer everything. Now, you just said that they also wanted you to reduce costs, but in the end, these are events that they want to make happen, and they're somehow probably also timeline related. So it's not like you can debate forever. At one point of time, you have to, freeze the design and say, well, we have to go ahead, whatever it costs. So I don't know what your experience is with budgets and value engineering, because some of it are temporary installations, and sometimes people spend quite a lot of money for just a temporary installation. While when you talk about a permanent installation, you would sometimes think, well, that needs to be durable, so we need to spend a bit more money here.
Yeah.
I feel that sometimes it's a bit of a contradiction when you talk money in terms of these kind of applications.
Yeah, I don't have a rule of thumb on this. It's
I'm more talking about your experience, as you have gone through all these projects, and obviously at one point of time your clients say, "Hey, hold on, that's too much," and in the end they still pay it, maybe or maybe not. And I'm not more talking about your experience in dealing with governments, with authorities, with clients when it comes to the money side of things.
well, I think you have to show them at some point where that money goes to. I mean, that's the easiest way. If
Yeah.
you put, the star is here and it's $3 million. It
Mm.
wasn't that, but I'm just giving a thing.
Yeah.
Well, then, of course, because every producer, every promoter has an idea what you do. I go see a show. I saw the ABBA show. I can put a money figure on that. I can put a money figure on that, on how much would it cost to create, to do the content, because I've got that experience. So they have lots of experience. They know when they see something, their expectation is 1 million. You know, but it's based on whatever they have been doing
Yeah.
in their world, and they never tell me their expectation. That's the biggest fault I think that most of the promoters, construction companies, developers, and they can make. They always
Yeah.
think we're gonna be cheaper than what they had in their hands, and that they're gonna make a good deal, which is never the case. Never, because there is this conundrum that you have where if you don't know a budget,
Yeah.
either you are very expensive and the guy says, "Whoa, they're megalomaniac guys, crazy, never want to work with them again," or
Mm.
you are so much under their budget that they think those guys they don't know what I want, they're not ambitious enough. So
Mm.
you're always if you are not given a direction of where the money should go
Mm.
into. So I insist a lot,
Mm.
or I work with them on benchmarks. I work with them. I
Mm.
say, listen, this project that we did here was about that money. Is that where you think you should be? That's the
Mm.
expectations that you have. So
Yeah.
managing your expectations is and when you are very far away from each other, then I start to really explain where the money goes to. I say,
Mhm.
in terms of doing that thing over there, and I can be frank about that without giving the real numbers, that is at almost 55% of all the money of the whole production went to the rigging, just to the rigging,
Mm.
just to those four cables
Yeah,
going up and
spending. Yeah.
holding the thing in its place. Only 30% went to the construction of the star itself, and which is a big piece, 6.5 meters in diameter. All the lighting, all the pieces. It's a
Mm.
six
Yeah,
and a
yeah.
half ton equipment. It's that only 30% of the money went there,
Mm.
and 50% went to production and all the other shebang that you have around that. But 55 went to the cables, the talking cable.
Mm.
Sorry, I can.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, 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 yeah. So, talk about art. You also did your OVO sphere, which sort of traveled around the world. If I understood that
Yeah.
correctly, you developed an artwork for a certain purpose or maybe a certain event, and then it started traveling around the world. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, everybody who's old enough remembers 2008 when we had the credit crunch at the second part of 2008. And so we were at that point doing a lot of retail, real estate. And so in about 3 months, we went from 12 projects that we had to do to one and a half. So we had some time left, and the idea came to why won't we do something with an art installation? It's been on my mind since 4 years because I think in 2006 I did Lyon, Les Fêtes de Lumière for the first time with a dance and a light art installation, but which was completely ephemeral, was completely, just stock stuff and put it together over there with
Yeah, yeah,
LEDs. But my restless mind was already busy with that. So in 2009, we kind of developed that collaboration with the sculptors and us to make this thing, the oval sculpture. And it was from the idea to really put it out there on a platform, on an artistic platform, so that we
yeah.
could put it in lots of different locations. So I think we did 16, locations from China, Mongolia to the US,
Mm.
um, and we stopped when it was literally almost falling apart because every time you screw it in, you have to screw it out, and then the
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
At some point, it's and
Where is it now? In storage?
it's in a garden of somebody, yeah.
Oh, okay.
The but Burning Man even asked us to put it at Burning
Ah,
Man, but they asked me to burn it down at the end, and I
oh
said
yeah.
no, you can't do that. All the LEDs that you make, it's not very healthy to burn all the CPUs and all the LEDs and all the cabling and all the wiring and all stuff like that. I said, especially because it was made to travel. So the whole thing was completely disassembled only with pieces. We had two little slide cases of lighting equipment, and we had three pallets, small pallets, 120 by 80, of wood. So it literally went into with a little bit of struggle, you could put it into this kind of C4, those little
Mhm.
vans.
Yeah, yeah,
Everything
yeah, yeah.
could it fit
Oh,
in two airport air air containers, the ones that you
containers.
use
Okay.
for air travel. It fit in there. It was made to really be very compact to be able to travel around the world. And they asked me to burn it, and I said, no, 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 I'm not doing it. I don't want to
Okay.
do that. It's
At
it's
least
too
somebody's
many.
happy because it's in his garden.
Yeah.
So I also want to ask you about Puy du Fou. I've seen that
Yeah.
also multiple times, and I think that's an ongoing thing that keeps going. Tell
Yeah.
me a bit about that. I love France, and I think you also have a big affinity with France. What's Puy
Oh
du
yeah.
Fou?
Well, I think I visited Pretty Foo in 2008 at some point in a conference calling kind of thing. And so I was kind of impressed with them. But I think it was in 2011 that Pretty Foo got a prize, a TEA prize or IAPA prize, for the themed entertainment markets and stuff like that. So they went to Vegas for the first time, and so The original founder, Philippe de and his son, Nicolas, who's today the artistic director and also the president and the chairman, and like everything. They went to Vegas and they went to see a few shows. One of them was the Red, and they saw the Red show at that moment, and they were, you know, very impressed with that show, and they went into the book and they saw who's this guy that did the lighting, and so they were calling up people in France. Who knows who? How can we get in touch with Koert? You know, and so somebody knew me. Then I was introduced, and they said you have to come immediately to Pretty Fou, and I went there, and they gave me the royal treatment on everything. And so they set me down to see the Cine show that I had seen 5 years before. And at the end of that thing, they were gathering around me with 8 people, and they were like, "So, what did you think about the show?" So that's a catch 22, like we say. You can only say bad things. You know, if you say everything is good, they won't hire you because they say he doesn't have anything to say. If you
Yeah.
say too much of the things that you think is wrong with it, they will take it personally because they are also they are the
Yeah.
creators of the show. So you're really like you're on
Yeah.
a court, the thing, and on a
Yeah.
bicycle at the same time with a monkey on your head,
Mm.
balancing to really find the right words to tell them what is really good about it and what could be better developed.
Yeah.
And I did the rope, and they literally at the end of the session they said we're gonna work with you. We will have our people call your people for the money, and but can you come back in 2 weeks? We have to start working, and
The
and that
rest is
was 2012 was the first year that we done. In 2011 we started working already. 2012 was the first iteration. The job is so humongous that the lighting design concept that I proposed had to be done over 4 years because it's a huge investment. I mean, the stage is 250 meters wide, 110 meters deep. It's 3 football fields plus 3,000 actors on stage. I mean, it's a lot. And also every year they do new stuff, so that was the thing. And from that project came the other one, and then the other one, and the other one. So we kind of, we've been together for 10 years. Now the COVID pandemic was really hard for them, so
oh yeah, I
they are
can imagine.
yeah really really they have not yet recovered completely from this. That's why you will see a delay in most of the projects that have come in terms of the development. Nicola told me 3 years of delay because of that one, just a year and a half of COVID. That was really hard for them. But it's the
Sounds like
same in Macau. You also see in Macau that it's still not to the level what it was before, and all the
yeah.
projects in Macau have also been delayed or put on hold indefinitely. So.
Is that your retirement project? Something that you will be doing until you retire?
uh, well, a while ago there was this hotel in space kind of thing where they wanted to put a
Mm.
hotel in space, and they were looking for people to work with them, and we kind of put ourselves on their list for doing the lighting design of the that
Mm.
roundabout
Yeah,
the
yeah.
hotel is. That's something I kind of still like to do. Yeah, something
And
really.
go up there, of course, with commission.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's the thing.
yeah.
No, it's I don't know. When I was really just starting my young career, I kind of made a bucket list. So I wanted to do an Olympic ceremony. I wanted to do a big show in Vegas. I wanted to do something on Broadway. I wanted to do a big tour, and I got 5 things out of it. There's one thing that I still have to do. All the rest I've been able to do over the course of my years.
Yeah.
So I think I'm very fortunate to already
Mm.
be having been able to do so many things on
Yeah,
my bucket.
yeah.
You know,
If you
and
look back, what would be your most satisfying project? I mean, if you go to your website, there's so many projects there. Seems to me hard to choose, but maybe you have a favorite or a few favorites that you have done over
Yeah,
the years.
yeah. It's a very nice question. It's really like saying, whom of your babies do you like the most? It's a, as a parent, if you can't say that in public, because either your clients or your people or your your mother will say, what are you doing? I always like to say the one that we're doing next year.
Hmm. And which one
Because
would
I've
that
got a
be?
very, it's maybe not the nicest thing to say, but you're only as relevant and as good as your last project.
Hmm.
Um, we are in a very fast-paced world. Whatever I did 10 years ago, it's a memory. It's no longer relevant for people to choose you anymore. It's what you have done in the last 4 or 5 years. That's what makes it relevant, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
so I mean, I can't say over 20 or 34 years of really doing projects what I like the most one. But
Mm.
so the relevance is one thing. But I thought you were going to ask me if I would change something in the course of my career, what would it have been? I
Yeah,
thought that
yeah.
was a
I was.
pointer.
I'm not getting there yet, but yes, that's one of the things that I wanted to ask. If there's one point of time you wanted to change direction or things that you wanted to change, so
Now,
yeah, I did want to ask that. Yeah.
yeah, that's because that's something I've been talking about a lot when I'm interviewing people or I'm, talking to the younger people. That is one thing. I've never worked for somebody else. I mean, I've
Mm.
worked my whole life for somebody else, but I could choose who it was, whether it's the artistic director or the promoter or whatever. If I didn't have a good feeling with him, I could say, get away. But they were never in control of my work. They can say, I love it, I use it, or I don't, but you were working for a boss, like all these people here in this office working for this company and this style and this thing. I miss that. I miss the fact that I've never had that experience of working for somebody else with their vision, their mentality, and having to adapt myself to that on a consistent basis, but also to not really having a mentor following me in the youth of my career. I mean, there I mean, I can see what I sometimes can do with people that are here, and I mentor them, and I, like put them into their paces. And sometimes it's hard, but sometimes it's really also very, very good. And building a company is not that easy. I've seen some people leave this here and say, I want to create my own company, and 3 years later, that company didn't exist anymore. They were working again for another firm, which is okay, because we cannot all be entrepreneurs and designers and commercial people at the same time. And it's those three things together that you have to have in you to make a company work.
Mm.
Entrepreneurship, your talent as a designer, and you have to be able to sell yourself
Mm.
and your company.
Yeah.
So not everybody has that, and I've warned some people. I say, listen, you're too soon. Stay another 2 years here. You can go to a senior role. You can have more experience by how to handle clients and see this kind of things. And
Mm.
well, they said no, and they went out. It didn't work out, and those things happen. But I feel that if I would have had a mentor a little early on in my career, I would not have made so many business mistakes that I've done along the
Um,
path.
I'm laughing because
Different ones.
I obviously worked for Philips for 12 years before I started my own. So in a way, I did the route that you just described. I spent 12 years with Philips, having a mentor, having a boss telling me how and what, and trying to make up my own thing before I started my own. To say that that has really helped me to become a better business person, no, because I had to learn it the hard way when I started on my own. But I can understand where you're coming from, but there's no guarantee that that would have helped things in a better way. Sometimes you learn things the hard way when you're self-responsible rather than other people are responsible for it, right?
Yeah.
So to me, I felt that I learned more by being on my own than being. Yes, of course, I learned the ropes and the basic things when I was in Philips, and there was different designers, and I would learn what one did and what the other did, and you'll pick and choose and say, okay, I like this, I like that, and you create your own identity, as it were, as a designer. But I really learned the ropes of lighting design when I was on my own, because that's when you really have to make the decisions, and you're not always can rely on other people. It's just down to you. You have to call it out and say, okay, this is how we're going to do it, even if you're not totally confident. So yes and no. I understand where you're coming from. I'm not sure whether that would have helped a lot. But it
But
gave me a lot of insight, of course, in the manufacturer's side of how things are developing. So now
but you
we
stayed
live
too
today
long,
in
yeah.
totally.
Stayed too long
Sorry.
at Philips. You stayed much too long. 12 years is too long to stay
Yeah, but
there.
I've done more than 30 years on my own already. So,
No, that's
so
okay. But I think the mentorship that I'm talking about is something that you take with me for 3 to 5 years.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It I'm talking a lot about how to the processes in a company.
yeah.
I mean, the moment we start to have personnel, and they were asking us to do evaluation, yearly evaluations. Never Never
Yeah,
done
yeah,
that
yeah.
before, never knew how to do it. So,
Mm,
by trial and error, after a few
mm,
years, you know how to do it. If you had been in a company before, that process of how to do an interview, you've done it yourself with that person, you would have
yeah,
had, the process and the documentation that goes
true.
with it in a
Yeah,
very kind of.
yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm
But
in business.
those 12 years were not spent 12 years in the same division or the same department. I started with the light design division, then I was posted in France, where I spent 2, 3 years. Then I went back to Holland for 2 years, and I was posted in Singapore for 2, 3 years. So it was a bunch of different experiences. But yeah, you could argue, but sometimes you follow the flow, and when it's time, it's time. It comes
Yeah,
at different times to different people. What I want to say is that we are living in a totally different world with social media and interactiveness in the mobility that we have. When I started, at least we didn't even have a mobile phone. We didn't have computers. I was on the drafting table. You had, the only computer that I knew was a big mainframe computer, a few rooms further down our department, where you had to do punch cards, and then overnight, hopefully, you got some lighting calculations out. Today, we live in a totally different world. Is that affecting you in the way, because you've been around for a long time? You've known the nearly pre-social media time era. How does that affect you in your daily life? The way do you approach things differently?
Well, the approach, no, I don't think the approach we do is differently. I think we are more efficient
Mm,
by using all the digital tools that we have at our disposal, especially with the added digital knowledge with whom the people come in now.
mm,
At some point, there was this discrepancy that we had between what we were using here in the office and new people coming in, lacking a lot of knowledge about those tools. AutoCAD was a premise. Who really knew AutoCAD really well,
mm.
coming out of Wismar even or whatever.
Yeah.
At some point for about 5 to 7 years, there was this really discrepancy where we had to educate the people using those tools. Nowadays, they come in, they have those digital knowledge so well under control that even if there's a new tool they don't know yet, in a week they are adapting to it.
Yeah.
So what we do now with 12 people is what I needed to do before with 20,
Mm,
to get in the same amount of time the same amount of output.
mm,
And I think that will even speed up more once we will be, effectively putting all the AI tools into our daily processes that we have. And so
mm,
we are playing with that at the moment.
mm,
And I think the design itself will benefit from a lot of AI. But I think mostly the business will. I see a lot of help in the business where I can spend less time on administration and HR and marketing and all those kind of things, and spend more time on projects. If I can get, you know, um, if I can get 30% of my time back from all those things, and I can
Mm.
put that back to my into my projects or in my business development that I do with clients, that's the benefit that will happen. That I'm sure.
Right, right. So if you look back, what do you think your legacy would be? If you look back at all your years of, you still have a lot of years ahead of you for sure. But do you think you're going to leave a legacy to the new generation?
Jesus, man. Now you really made me think about dying. So you have to warn me about this. It's a, that's a, I
No, it's
no
not, it's
no
not an easy question,
I
but sometimes
I
we do things.
yeah. I mean, I don't have children of my own. My wife now has a child, and I'm his beau-père. How do you say that? Stepfather, and so I've had the chance to really be, but I don't think it's up to me to decide what will be my legacy. I think it's to the legacies that will decide what will be what they have taken from me, or what they have learned from me. And I think it's to the one that is going to write my eulogy that it's going to be
Mm.
the narrator of the legacy that I'm doing. I don't want to. I don't want to talk. I don't want to say that.
Yeah,
I-
you still have too much passion
yeah,
to get up every day and do your thing.
I still have a lot of things to do, man, before I'm
Yeah.
over here. Yeah. Still have
Well, isn't
plenty
that
of.
fantastic? Isn't that fantastic? That I mean, I've got the same thing. I mean, I'm approaching 70, and I'm like, wow, there's still so many things I want to do,
Oh
right?
yeah,
And I think,
yeah.
and I think that's the great thing about our job, or our discipline of lighting design. There's still so much things, and the technology keep evolving, and there are new opportunities. And to me, it's really, I mean, it drives me every day still, even though I'm trying to calm down a bit, and I'm now a grandfather as well. So there's other things to look after as well. But it's still something that drives me every day, and I can imagine that for you also. There's still so much out there to do. I know you know your passion. We've met several times over the years, and it's always been a pleasure. Thank you for this chat. We generally end up with a rhetorical question, which I wanted to ask you. If there's a question that you would like to ask me or would like to put out to our community, what would that be?
Oh, my favorite question, and I want to bring that to the younger public
Hmm.
is, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Hmm.
It's the
Well,
typical question that we always get on interviews. It's a
hmm,
very hard question. It's such a
yeah.
hard question to respond to. If you can imagine, and for me, the I'm gonna say it like this. For me, the one that can answer anything on that question is somebody that really has a vision of how it could be. Not how, but he can think.
Hmm,
And it's the kind of a trick question that you put into somebody, if he can find a methodology to get there. That's the kind of thing.
hmm.
So whoever can tell me how he sees the future for him and for our industry in 10 years, I will definitely call him up for an interview.
Well, I mean, I know it's a difficult question, and for me, it's also, I've been in this business for more than 40 years, and to look ahead is also very difficult. But one thing I do know is that I have so much knowledge, you know, assembled over all these years, that one of the things that I'd love to do right now is to share that, at least in a way which we do with VLDC, obviously, but also through my own Light Talk platform, where we're trying to share the knowledge and help the older generation, the newer generation, I should say. with at least things they can pick up from. It doesn't need to say that what I say is the way it should be, but these are my experiences. And sometimes you pick up one little thing from somebody that helps you, sort of form yourself, finding yourself. And I think that's something. And one of the biggest things that I have found, and if I look at your question, is that we somehow should be prepared to go with the flow, because we don't know what the future brings. We know general directions, we know a bit how the technology develops, but 15 years ago I had no idea about social media, and now suddenly we're posting stuff from social media, which so you adapt to your environment. And I think adaptability and being willing to learn and educate yourself about what is possible, I think, is part of the journey that you embark in towards the future. You can't say indeed what the future is or will be, but very often I also like to say you often know what you don't want. So that eliminates a number of things as well and sort of fine tunes a bit your direction. But what is exactly along that path forward? No, we don't know. But as long as we are open and willing to explore the opportunities that come our way, I think we still both have a big future ahead and a long future ahead. Maybe we should make an appointment for when we're both 80 or 90 or something and see where we're at in our careers. I hope to still be around. Maybe not as active as today, but certainly it's something that I want to keep doing. Koert, thank you so much for this chat. It has been a real pleasure to chat with you. I hope to see you in real life somewhere in this world soon. And till then, thank you so much.
Well, you couldn't have said it better. Thank you, Martin.
My pleasure.